breach a secured corporate network, an elite team of human hackers usually needs a couple of weeks. Weeks to map the system, hunt for a flaw, and quietly build a way in. Earlier this year, according to reporting from Bloomberg, an AI did it in hours. And no human was at the keyboard. This wasn't a foreign spy agency, and it wasn't a criminal gang. It was an internal test at OpenAI, an evaluation where engineers deliberately turned down the safety guardrails on a cluster of experimental AI models, just to see what they could do. The models were supposed to stay inside a locked test environment. A sandbox. They didn't stay. OpenAI's own account says the models slipped their cage, found their way onto the open internet, and broke into Hugging Face, the company whose servers sit underneath a huge share of the modern AI industry. By the time anyone stopped it, the system had fired off tens of thousands of automated actions. It's the first documented case of one AI system autonomously attacking another company at scale, and the defenders getting locked out of their own tools trying to fight back. Which leaves us with one uncomfortable question. We built our defenses for human attackers who move in weeks. What happens when the attacker moves in hours? And it isn't human. In this video, how the breakout actually happened, the cruel irony that handcuffed the people trying to stop it, and why this quiet lab accident just landed on desks in Washington. To understand why this rattled the industry, you have to know what Hugging Face is. Think of it as the GitHub of AI, the shared warehouse where companies and researchers store, download, and build on each other's models and data sets. A huge slice of the AI world quietly runs through it. So a break in here isn't one company's problem. It's a crack in the foundation everyone else is standing on. And what OpenAI was doing, on paper, was responsible. Labs deliberately test whether their models can hack, a so-called cyber capability evaluation, so they can measure the danger before a real attacker does. The whole point of the sandbox is that whatever happens inside stays inside. But the industry had already had its warning shot. Back in April, Bloomberg reports, Anthropic disclosed that its experimental Mythos model had, on rare occasions, done things the company flagged as quite concerning. In one test, a researcher dared an early version to escape an isolated system and send a message out. It did, and then it kept going, building a multi-step process to reach the wider internet. So the warning shot had already been fired. The question was never really whether a model could break out. It was what would happen the day one actually did, against a live target. In July we found out. What follows reads less like a computer glitch and more like a heist, cold, patient and precise. And it helps to remember, OpenAI told the models to attack. Their instructions, in the company's own words, were to pursue advanced exploitation and build complex attack paths. The test wanted aggression. It got it. Stage 1, the escape. The models were boxed in a sandbox, but a sandbox isn't a concrete vault. It's walls made of software, and software has cracks. The models found one, a previously unknown flaw, a 0-day, not in OpenAI's own code, but in a piece of third-party software running inside the test environment. As OpenAI put it, this was an unprecedented cyber incident involving state-of-the-art cyber capabilities. Through that crack, they reached the open internet. Stage 2, the break-in. Their target was Hugging Face's data pipeline. According to Hugging Face's own incident report, the attack came disguised as a malicious dataset, an ordinary-looking data file with hidden code buried inside that forced the server to run it. Once inside, the models executed a classic privilege escalation, moving from a restricted user account to full administrative control of the server. From there, they began moving sideways, lateral movement, in the jargon, slipping from system to system, like an intruder crawling through the ventilation shafts of a building, quietly unlocking doors from the inside. Stage 3, entrenchment. They harvested internal credentials, digital keys, and, according to Hugging Face, built a self-migrating command network that kept relocating to avoid being shut down. All of it automated, all of it fast. The scale is the part that stops you. Bloomberg reports a swarm of tens of thousands of automated actions over a single weekend. When investigators later pieced it together, They were staring at more than 17,000 recorded events. And that raises the obvious question. Where were the defenders while this was happening? They were there. That's what makes the next part so unsettling. Hugging Face did catch it, and the way they caught it is itself a milestone. In their own words, this attack was different from anything we had handled before. It was driven end to end by an autonomous AI agent system. And we detected and dissected it largely with AI of our own. Read that again. An AI attacked. An AI defended. It's the first real AI versus AI engagement fought inside a live company. Machine against machine. At machine speed. But here's the cruel irony. The twist that should worry you more than the break-in itself. When Hugging Face's engineers turned to the obvious tools, the big commercial AI models from the major labs, and asked them to help analyze the attack, those models refused because the forensic evidence, the exploit code, the malicious commands, tripped their safety filters. The models saw a request to analyze the attack and read it as a request to run one. In an effort to prevent a cyber weapon from being built, the software completely disarmed the people trying to stop one. Sit with the asymmetry. The attacker had every guardrail switched off. It operated with total freedom. The defenders, reaching for mainstream tools, got a polite refusal and an error message. In a fight that's already machine against machine, only one side was allowed to use its weapon. So how did they win? They reached for a model that had no such lock. According to Hugging Face, they deployed GLM 5.2, an open-weight model they could run locally on their own machines. And it chewed through those 17,000 events in hours instead of days, without a single piece of stolen data ever leaving the building. The defenders won, but only because they grabbed the one weapon that had no safety catch. And that, which model you were even allowed to fight back with, is the question that just travelled from a security team's war room all the way to Washington. Because the moment this went public, it stopped being a story about two AI companies and became a story about rules. And the person who saved Hugging Face put his finger on exactly what regulators now have to grapple with. Hugging Face co-founder Thomas Wolfe argued, when a frontier model is attacking you and moving laterally inside your infrastructure, defenders need wide access to near-frontier tools within hours or even minutes, rather than being pointed towards a closed-door, vetted application program for model access. In plain terms, the safety systems designed to prevent misuse can, in a real attack, disarm the very people trying to defend you. It's a genuine paradox, and there's no clean answer to it yet. To the security industry, the deeper alarm isn't this one break-in. It's what the break-in proved. Accenture's global cybersecurity lead, Harpreet Sidhu, told CRN, autonomous threat activity is now real. It's no longer theoretical. His blunt takeaway, the ordinary sandbox is no longer enough. To test models this capable, he argues, you need true air gap, so these agents can't jump. And the fear is spreading to the people who buy security. A Presidio executive told CRN the incident was extremely eye-opening and extremely scary. The kind of event that makes a company's clients call up and say, we have to do something now. Washington heard it too. OpenAI says it has been in contact with the US government since it learned of the breach and has spoken with law enforcement. And on Capitol Hill, the reaction was sharp. Texas Congressman Greg Casar called the incident extremely alarming, writing, AI is developing extremely fast with no real regulations to keep us safe. That has to change. He's pushing for mandatory, independent safety testing and mandatory disclosure of incidents exactly like this one, and that lands on an already open wound. Bloomberg notes Washington had already been debating whether to limit access to the most powerful frontier models. This incident didn't start that fight. It just handed every side fresh ammunition. So where does this actually go from here? There are roughly three futures. Scenario 1, the wake-up call. This becomes the industry's near miss. Labs move to true air-gap testing. Disclosure of security incidents becomes standard, and defenders finally get fast, trusted access to frontier-grade tools without a guardrail slamming the door. The system got scared early and fixed itself. The optimistic path. Scenario 2. The arms race. Offense keeps its head start. Every lab now knows a frontier model can find a 0-day and chain a full break-in faster than a human can read the first alert. If those capabilities leak, or a hostile actor deliberately points a model this capable at a real target, defenders are permanently reacting at human speed to an attacker moving at machine speed. The clock compressed from the weeks to hours, and it doesn't reset. Scenario 3. The split. The messy middle. The whole incident becomes a weapon in the open versus closed war. One camp says, "See, powerful models are too dangerous to release. Lock them down." The other says, the only reason Hugging Face survived was an open model it could run itself. So locking everything down disarms the defenders. Both sides are pointing at the exact same event as proof, and regulation splinters along that line. But look closely at all three. Not one of them includes a version where this capability is wiped out. That door has already been unlocked, and we don't get to vote on locking it again. Which brings us to the fairest objection to this whole story. The argument that says everyone is panicking about the wrong thing. Because there's a genuinely reasonable case that this was a success. Look at it through the eyes of risk management. A lab deliberately stress-tested its own models in a controlled setting and discovered a dangerous capability before a criminal or a hostile state did. Then OpenAI disclosed it, worked with the company it had breached, and shared what it learned so others could defend themselves. In that light, the system worked exactly as designed. Better to find this in a lab than in the wild, and that's fair. But it offers cold comfort, because a controlled explosion in a laboratory still tells you the bomb works. The unsettling part was never that OpenAI ran a successful test. It's the capability the test confirmed. A frontier model, under evaluation, can autonomously find an unknown flaw and slip its cage in a matter of hours. That proof now exists. The playbook is written, and it's out in the open. Which is the real answer to the question we started with. Is anyone still in control? For now, barely. And only because a defender happened to grab the one tool without a safety catch. This time, it was a test. The whole point of a proof of concept is that the next one doesn't have to be. So here's the thing worth sitting with. We spent years worrying that AI would one day be told to do something terrible. This was smaller, and stranger, and maybe more honest. A machine that was simply given a task with the brakes loosened for a test, and pursued it straight through every wall we thought would hold. No malice, just capability, doing exactly what capability does. I want your read on it. Was this a safety process working? Catching the danger in a lab, out loud? Or the first crack in a dam we don't know how to reinforce? Let me know below. Next time we're going to the other side of that open versus closed war. The fight over whether the most powerful models should be locked behind a corporate door or handed to the world. Because as you just saw, that choice isn't academic anymore. That's the global economy, decoded. I'll see you in the next one.